Support for Carolina Business Review provided by Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
Well, it seems the closer we come to the presidential election, the harder it gets to keep focus on those things that we do know versus what is hyperbole, fear, or just hearsay. Welcome and thank you for supporting the most widely watched and the longest-running dialogue on Carolina business and public policy, seen each week for 25 years on PBS across North and South Carolina. What are the issues worth knowing now? Well, we will wade into the discussions, and later on, BB&T President Ricky Brown will join in.
Major funding also by Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care when and where you need it. The Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. On this edition of Carolina Business Review, Peggy B. McLean, Economic Development Director for Kershaw County, Julie White of the North Carolina Metropolitan Mayors Coalition, and special guest Ricky Brown, President of BB&T.
Welcome to our program. Ladies, happy fall, and glad you're here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Julie,
It's good to be here.
Thank you, Peggy. Julie, let's start with you. You know, I don't mean to make this sound flippant, and I don't mean to minimize it, but Charlotte has had some challenges around a young man who had been shot by an African-American police officer. This man was African-American, but all of this really ignited race relation dialogue, hard feelings, emotion, to a point where it was at a fever pitch. I don't want to ask you necessarily about that, but one of the issues that North Carolina towns, South Carolina towns, is we have a strong mayor, which tends to be, we have a strong city manager, which tends to be that the mayor is more of a bully pulpit to some degree. Will a dialogue change in reflection of what happened in Charlotte? Will those type of events that really boil out into the streets, into protesting, into violence, does that create some rethinking about if we need to have a strong mayor in some of our cities and towns?
You know, Chris, North Carolina has a long history of a professional city management of city government. We have more AAA rated cities, and that means it's a metric for how well run our cities are and the financial shape they're in. We have more AAA rated cities than any other state in the nation. And that's because our managers are pros. They have masters in public administration. They come up through managing cities. They've done it their whole career. And so they're more like the COO of running the city. The council and the mayor set the agendas, they set the policy, and the manager runs the city. And when you're thinking about running a water system or running a trash collection, you want a pro in doing those things. So I think it's been one of the reasons we have such strong cities in North Carolina. That said, I think a lot of North Carolinians think the mayor does run the city.
Probably the mayor thinks the mayor runs the city.
Well, mayors know that they have a gem in their managers.
Right.
I mean, mayors are keenly aware what a great job their city managers do. But we know that our elected officials' job is to set the policy. And so they think there's a clear delineation of that. So I think there probably will be more conversation about, does the mayor run the city? Do they not? Should they? But I also think that we have to look to what has made our city so successful in that dialogue.
So excuse me, not for interrupting you here a little bit, Julie, but so fast forward a little bit. What are some of the dialogues, again, in reflection of what has happened in Charlotte around this? When your mayors get together, what do they talk about? Is it really just more about politics, or do they say, you know, maybe we ought to be thinking about X or Y if this becomes more of an issue, and not just Charlotte, but maybe Raleigh or Columbia or Charleston?
You know, when my mayors get together, they are very focused on policy. They're talking about, what are you doing in economic development? That is the number one thing they're talking about. You know, what are you building? How are you investing in your downtown? Who are your assets that you're using in your business community to help do your economic development effort? The last time our mayors were together in Rocky Mount, there was a conversation around performing arts centers. Does a downtown need a performing arts center? How do you finance it? And so the mayors are, when they get together, they're really focused on policy discussions.
I'm sorry, Peggy, let me bring you into this, and not to keep going down this road of some of the not so great headlines, but Charlotte just joined the dubious club that Charleston had to join. And I'm, of course, talking about the Emmanuel Church shootings and how that city responded. And you have seen both now. You've seen how Charlotte is responding to that. You watched the Charleston's response to that. It was epic. Do you think that this is a different day, and especially as an economic developer, do you think that we have to think differently now about this arc, this future that we are on in the Carolinas, that we're becoming now mature, the cities are becoming bigger, congestion is becoming a problem? Does this concern you at all as an economic developer, some of these issues?
Well, as an economic developer, I'm seeing what we do as part of a solution to some of the problems that may occur. Because if people have jobs and if people are productive, I think there's going to be less strife and less anger. And so what we're trying to do is make the community, I mean, I work for a county, so a very small entity, but I want to make sure that the lifestyle and the quality of life and the potential of the people in my community is maximized. And so I think we can play a vital role in helping to, combat some of this divisiveness and some of the strife that's going on.
Yeah, and by the way, I want to congratulate you on the South Carolina Economic Developers Association gave you the highest honor, an award. You were the Developer of the Year.
Well, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was quite an honor. There are a lot of good economic developers in South Carolina, so I feel very honored.
So we've got a couple issues that bubble up when we have these dialogues in our region between the states, and that is transportation, workforce development. We're always talking about that. Is transportation, is that the issue within the mayors right now?
So I think it's probably a little broader than just transportation. What we're focused on is how do we plan, design, and invest in our community in a way that will attract the high quality workforce. And so transportation's a component, but it's also about transportation options, not just congestion. It's about downtowns. Folks want to be able to walk in a community. They want to have assets available to them. And so our motto has always been, how do we build a city that people will want to move to, and then business will follow. And I don't know if that's South Carolina's approach as well.
Well, it's funny when you talk about infrastructure, and transportation is part of infrastructure, and certainly a large part, but also water and sewer. Those are vital components of infrastructure. As someone has told me, he said, if you can't have the ballet if you can't flush the toilets. And so it all comes together. So the roads are important, but your water and your sewer are important too, to create, the lifestyle that people want.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for just about 2 minutes. And I know that's not going to do it justice, but transportation has been a very hot button in the South Carolina State House and the North Carolina General Assembly, certainly in the last budget that was approved. So do we need to be thinking a little differently about how we fund what a transportation formula is or should be? What would you tell Nikki Haley?
I would tell her best of luck. I mean, get some smart people around you and figure out a way to fix this, fix our roads. Now, certainly gas tax is a part of that. We were discussing that sometimes raising a tax is risky for a politician, but there's some things that need to be done. And we have been very successful in South Carolina in our manufacturing output. So that means more trucks on the road. So that means more congestion. We've done inland ports and we've done things to try to fix that, but we have to fix our roads. So people smarter than I am are going to have to figure out how to do it.
Julie, is there a conspicuous answer to the transportation woes for North Carolina that's not seeing the light of day, that the mayors might be talking about kind of offline that we're just not getting to?
So North Carolina is a little unique in that our state manages the preponderance of our roads. They own and have to invest in roads even within our cities, the big ones that people tend to use. Cities are responsible more for your subdivision roads, streets like that. And so I think what we're spending a lot of time thinking about is what is the right user fee? So if you're using the road, how are you contributing? You're doing it through gas tax, but cars are becoming more efficient, so you're paying less that way. We're starting to expand into tolling in North Carolina, so it's a very direct user tie. How do we keep moving to find the right user fee to match the person who's using the road? South Carolina did the pennies for progress. We've looked a lot at that model, so it's like a local sales tax option that would specifically fund a road project. We're looking at the local level. What are the options we might want to have that would allow us to invest more in those subdivision roads, but we look to the state to maintain the burden of the majority.
It really is a state. It really is a state issue.
So a quick answer, would tolls become an increasingly part of that dialogue?
So we already are tolling in the Charlotte region and in the Triangle. The tolling option is available to locals to weigh in on that issue if they want to bring tolls to their area. I do expect that we will probably see more use of it in the future.
Ladies, thanks. We're going to bring our guest on here in just a second. Next week on this program, are the Carolinas being increasingly powered by the sun? We will talk about solar development and the application within the existing energy policy in North and South Carolina. And then she is the Secretary of the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources in North Carolina. Former North Carolina Mayor Susan Klutz will be on our program, and also Chairman and CEO of Duke Energy, Lynn Good, will also be joining us in the next few weeks. Our guest has had a front seat to the exceptional growth and development and expansion in this region now for decades. He is a banker, but many know him and describe him more as a thinker. We welcome BB&T Community Banking President Ricky Brown. Mr. President, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Chris. It's glad to be with you today.
Are you smiling because you've got a retirement date right out in front of you?
Well, I have to say I am smiling a little bit about that, Chris. And it has been almost 40 years with BB&T, and at the same time, I've had the same wife for almost 40 years, so I'm a boring guy, really.
How would she describe that, I wonder?
She would probably say it's been pretty exciting because we've had great opportunity to be all over North Carolina. We've been to Washington, D.C. We get now to see all over our footprint, 15 states and the District of Columbia. So it has been an unbelievable ride with BB&T. When I started, we were about $450 million in size. Today, we're 220 plus billion. We were Eastern North Carolina Farm Bank. Today, we're a highly diversified financial services company throughout the United States. So it's been an incredible, incredible story to see the growth of our company and at the same time participate in what you all were talking about a little bit ago in terms of the economic development of North Carolina, South Carolina, and now having a bigger role throughout the Mid-Atlantic and the Southeast around to Texas. So it has been incredible. It's no doubt about that.
Ricky, so now, we're kind of kidding a little bit about the retirement date, but now you've got, I don't want to call it this, but you got an end date. You're looking at something for the next chapter. And as you kind of let some of the responsibility of the bank off, you get to look at it a little bit differently now. So when you look back, as you just articulated, the growth of BB&T, but when you look at the industry, when you look at the challenges in the region and the country, what do you think an important dialogue for us to have that we're not having about financial services or finance or money or the cost of money?
I would say one thing that I have clearly observed when you go back 25 years, we were able to help our clients a little bit better. It was a little easier to help our clients. We could do things that we can't do today. We can, with new accounting rules and regulatory and risk management issues that are so prevalent today, sometimes in all of that, I believe the client has gotten lost. And we've made it harder for the client to do business with us and made it harder for us to help our clients. And certainly over the last 8 years during this recovery, and albeit tepid recovery from the Great Recession, there's been a lot of clients that needed banks to help them. And sometimes we weren't able to do what we wanted to do. That's been a really big difference because when I started, you could help clients. You could do things that today you go, wow, that's a troubled debt restructure, or wow, you got to put that thing on non-accrual. And that may be better from a an accounting, a risk management perspective, but is it better for the economy? Is it better for our businesses so that they feel like they can grow and they know what they can get from their bank? And so that's probably been one of the biggest changes that I have seen. It is clearly a much more onerous regulatory environment today. And the truth is we have to do what we have to do. And we are doing that at BB&T. We are adjusting to the playing field, and we are playing according to the new rules. And we're doing everything that we can, because at our bank, we really do get up every morning thinking about how can we help our clients. That's what we want to do. In our mission statement, we talk about our clients, our associates, our communities, and our shareholders. But the very first line says, we want to make the world a better place. And that's about every day doing everything you can, every interaction with every client and every associate, and with our communities that we help to support, and ultimately knowing that we got to do for our shareholders. But if we make the world a better place, that's what our legacy can be. That's what we're really trying to achieve.
Julie?
I'm curious, as you've watched North Carolina grow, it really grow in the last 20 years or so, how does that affect your business? How does that affect your loan portfolio? Are we growing together?
Well, North Carolina has certainly been a state of growth, and for us, being an Eastern North Carolina farm bank and exiting there and moving to the Raleighs and the Charlottes over the years, we've seen a change in our business. Certainly, if you look at where growth is happening in North Carolina, it's that sort of I-40, 85 corridor is Charlotte, a little bit of the Triad, Raleigh particularly, but it's a bifurcated state, truthfully. It's the more metropolitan areas. The rural areas are struggling. There's a few isolated pockets like with the Wilmingtons and the Greenvilles, the Fayettevilles, the Asheville's. But there's a lot of bifurcation in our state. And that's the same way, I think, in South Carolina, where you have Charleston as a real economic engine, the Columbia area, and then up in the upstate. And so in both of our states, we're seeing that kind of bifurcation. And that's one of the things that I think we have to work on long term, is that we've got to make sure that the haves don't keep being bigger, but the have-nots kind of come along. Chris and I were talking a little bit earlier. He has a home in Allegheny County, North Carolina. That's where I actually live. And it's a community that needs some support and help. And it's been a long-term decline in terms of textiles and other kinds of jobs that have been lost, whereas the Charlottes and, the more metropolitan areas have done better. And so as we think about economic development in the long term, we've got to think about how can we bring other counties along? How can we, get the hubs, but we get the spokes also filled out? And but there's no question our business today is clearly being more impacted by larger markets in the Carolinas. But if you go to Atlanta, if you go to Miami, if you go to Dallas, you go to Houston, you go to Washington, D.C., they're the places that we see the growth for our bank in the long term. And the good news is that we have highly diversified markets, large and small. We have highly diversified business segments. And I think that's one of the other things that we learned, Chris, out of the Great Recession, is that diversification matters. Geographic diversification, business diversification. And so that's the same way with economic development, right? You all working to make your cities and counties better. It's about not putting all of your eggs in one basket. It's getting a number of different and varieties of businesses to help support a more diversified economy. That's been one of the, I think, the strengths of North Carolina and South Carolina, is that we've been recruiting all kinds of businesses. We're not just an agricultural state anymore. We're, tires, we're auto, we're tech, we're medical and innovative medicine. We're a lot of things today.
Yeah, Peggy, that's got to be a layup for you. I mean, Ricky just kind of spelled out a few things, but I know you got a question.
Well, it's, you've been in the business a while. What have you seen change in your role, or the bank's role in your communities? I know Mike Brennan in South Carolina is very involved in the central region of South Carolina in economic development.
Yeah.
So how can y'all support that?
Well, no question. As I said, our mission, our purpose as a company is certainly to help our clients and associates, but communities are really important. And we ask our regional presidents to be highly involved. I know Mike is very involved in the educational process in South Carolina, among other things. We ask our presidents to do that in all of our communities. We are big in leadership because we think leadership matters. We're doing a lot to help support leadership. We're working with both North and South Carolina now in terms of how we can help leadership in our schools with our principals and our superintendents through our BB&T Leadership Institute. We're really big in financial literacy. We're supporting a group, in fact, in all of our states, we're engaged with a company called EverFi to provide financial literacy in our schools and the high schools, and we're seeing great support there. Kids come in, take the early test, they make 50. They go through the process, they make 85 about financial literacy. Because you can't live in a world that we have, a capitalistic world, a world of entrepreneurship, if you don't understand basic financial literacy concepts. We think that's really important. And so we help on all kinds of fronts. The educational front, we help on the humanities, we help in social issues. We have a thing called the BB&T Lighthouse that we've been doing now since we're probably 8 years in, where we give our associates time off and a little bit of money, but you can't give the money. You got to go get the blood, sweat, and tears, get your hands dirty, helping in our communities. It's been a really big deal. It's the best team building we've ever had. So when you look at all that, our support of our communities is essential for us to be successful. Communities not being successful means BB&T won't be successful. And so we put a lot of emphasis on that. So we want our associates to be highly engaged in their communities, and we think when we do that, we get a big return.
Ricky, it came to light that Wells Fargo has been doing an investigation and now had a negotiation with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau about some issues within the bank, community bank, what they call their stores. And I think it's fair to fully disclose that I am a Wells Fargo employee. But I want to bring this to light. And I want to ask you not so much about Wells Fargo, but rather what does the Wells Fargo action and issues like that, does that embolden the Community Financial Protection Bureau to be even more assertive and, I'm not going to say overreaching, but overseeing on what banks do going forward? Is this, I want to say it this way, is this another black eye for big bank institutions where people can pile on and say, yep, sure enough, here we go again?
Well, I think the answer to that is yes. If you think about in the Great Recession, banks had a very low level of respect in the community from the media, political participants. So we've been fighting an image for a long time. We're greedy, we're bad, we took advantage of people. That's just not true, by the way. The financial services industry is a highly noble industry. We do a lot of really good things for our clients and our communities. We're 10% of the GDP of the United States. We have 6 million plus people that do this every day and do it very, very well.
But there are bad actors.
There are bad actors in everything. And so what I would say is that when there is a bad action, there's a lot of overreaction. And so there's going to be some repercussions from this. Make no mistake about that. There's already been discussions from an OCC that put out a press release. We're going to look at sales practices. That means the Fed will look at sales practices. That means the FDIC will, the state banking commissions will. So there's going to be a lot of focus on that. And while we've been working really hard to repair our image, this does set it back just a little bit. At BB&T, we really think it's about culture. And we really do think this culture that we have that's been developed over these now over 144 years we've been in business is the right thing, a vision to be the best possible, our mission that you heard me say, a set of values that drive who we are, key strategies that are about making sure that our client experience is outstanding, making sure we're a consultative advisor to our clients, that we integrate all the resources at BB&T to help our clients. And then ultimately, we talk about being a community bank. You mentioned my title. We know we're not a community bank. We're $220 billion. But it's about being close to the client so they can be close to us, a very personal relationship. So it's metaphorical in that sense. That's who we are. That's what we try to do every day. So we don't worry about what Wells Fargo does or any other bank. We worry about what we do, which is really working hard to take care of our customers. And in that regard, we're working every day to repair our image as an industry because of what we do.
Do you see it working?
We do see what we're doing working. We have very good client service scores. We have good commercial client service scores. And we feel good that our cultural initiative is absolutely working. Think about this. I started BB&T 40 years ago. Little bank. We did a merger of equals in 1995.
We've got about 25 seconds.
So at the end of the day, in 1995, our culture was diluted in half. We had about 6,000 BB&Ters then. Today, we got less than 1,000 that were here then, but our culture is richer and deeper today because of this. Constancy of purpose and constancy of message. That's what we do.
That's the last word. Ricky, I wish we had more time. We didn't even talk about the mobile banking that you've been so passionate about. Best of luck in the next chapter.
Thank you so
We'll
much.
see you up in Allegheny County.
Absolutely. Look forward
Chase
to
you
that.
down.
Thank you.
Peggy, good luck, and thanks for being on the program.
Thank you very much.
Julie, you got the tiger by the tail of all those mayors, and I know it's a lot of fun, but it's still a lot of work, so thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Until next week, I'm Chris William. Good night.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care, when and where you need it. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services, with more than 300 operations in 35 countries. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of South Carolina, where healthcare is changing for the better. Find out how at ahealthysc.tv. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit carolinabusinessreview.org.